There's a kind of person who walks through the world like they have no skin. Everything touches them, everything reaches them. A sad song can ruin their entire day. A harsh word can echo in their mind for weeks. A stranger's pain can become their own so completely that they forget where the boundary is supposed to be. And people look at them and say things like, "You're too sensitive, you take things too personally, you need to toughen up," as if feeling deeply is a flaw, as if being affected by the world is something to fix rather than something to understand. But here's what nobody tells you about people who feel everything. They're not weak, they're not broken, they're not overreacting. They're experiencing life at a frequency most people can't even perceive. And that gift, because it is a gift, comes with a weight that can be almost unbearable. Let me show you what this looks like from the inside. You walk into a room, and before anyone says a word, you can feel it. The tension, the sadness, the unspoken conflict hovering in the air like smoke. Everyone else seems fine, carrying on with their conversations, but you're drowning in sensations you can't name and didn't ask for. Someone tells you a story about their struggle, and you don't just sympathize, you absorb it. You feel it in your chest, in your stomach, like it's happening to you. And hours later, when they've moved on, you're still carrying the weight of their pain, unable to shake it off. You watch the news, and the suffering of strangers hits you like a physical blow. Wars in distant countries, injustices you can't fix, tragedies you have no connection to. But somehow, you feel connected to all of it. And people tell you to stop watching if it bothers you so much. But it's not that simple, because even when you stop looking, you still feel it, the weight of a world in pain. Psychologists call this high sensitivity, or more technically, sensory processing sensitivity. It's a trait found in about 15 to 20% of the population. People with this trait have nervous systems that process stimuli more deeply. They notice subtleties others miss. They're more affected by art, by nature, by emotions, both their own and others. And here's what the research shows. Highly sensitive people aren't just imagining things. Their brains literally work differently. MRI studies show increased activation in areas related to empathy, awareness, and emotional processing. They're not choosing to feel more, they're wired to feel more. But society doesn't know what to do with people like this. We live in a culture that values toughness over tenderness, that rewards emotional detachment and calls it strength, that sees sensitivity as a liability rather than a capacity. So what happens to people who feel everything in a world that tells them not to feel at all? They learn to hide. They build walls. They develop elaborate systems to protect themselves from the constant onslaught of sensation and emotion. Some become reclusive. They limit their exposure to people, to places, to experiences because everything is just too much. They stay home not because they're antisocial, but because the world is louder, harsher, more overwhelming for them than it is for others. Some become people pleasers. They learn that if they can keep everyone around them happy, if they can smooth over conflicts before they start, they won't have to feel the sharp edges of anger or disappointment. So they twist themselves into shapes that fit everyone else's needs while ignoring their own. Some numb themselves. They drink, they use substances, they lose themselves in work or food or anything that dulls the intensity, not because they're addicts in the traditional sense, but because they're desperate for relief from the relentless feeling of everything. And the ones who haven't found a way to cope yet simply break. They collapse under the weight of an emotional load that was never meant for one person to carry. They're labeled as fragile, unstable, too much, when the truth is, they're just feeling what everyone else has learned to ignore. There's a concept in psychology called empathic distress. It's what happens when your empathy for others' suffering becomes so overwhelming that it impairs your own functioning. And highly sensitive people are particularly vulnerable to this. They feel others' pain so acutely that they can't separate it from their own. Research from UC Berkeley found that people high in empathy often experience burnout, secondary trauma, and compassion fatigue at much higher rates than others. Not because they're doing it wrong, but because they're doing it so intensely that it depletes them.
But here's what I need you to understand. If you are someone who feels everything, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not defective, you're not broken, you're not too much. You're just experiencing a depth of emotion that most people have been trained to suppress. And yes, that's hard. Yes, that's exhausting. Yes, that makes navigating this world more complicated. But it also means you experience beauty more intensely, you connect more deeply, you love more completely, you understand nuances that others miss, you create art that moves people, you offer compassion that heals, you see the world in colors that most people can't even name. The problem isn't your sensitivity. The problem is that you've been taught to see it as a weakness rather than the profound gift it actually is. So how do you survive in a world that feels like too much? How do you honor your sensitivity without letting it destroy you? First, you stop apologizing for it. You stop trying to be less affected, less emotional, less intense. You accept that this is how you're built, and you start treating your sensitivity as something that needs care, not something that needs fixing. Second, you learn to set boundaries. And I don't mean emotional walls. I mean conscious choices about what you expose yourself to. You limit time with people who drain you. You curate your media consumption. You create spaces where you can decompress. Because for you, boundaries aren't optional. They're survival. Third, you practice grounding. When you're absorbing everyone else's emotions, you need techniques to come back to yourself. Deep breathing, physical movement, time in nature, anything that reminds your nervous system that you're safe, that not everything you're feeling is yours to carry. And fourth, you find your people. The ones who don't make you feel like you're too much. The ones who value your depth instead of asking you to diminish it. The ones who understand that your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a feature. They exist, and when you find them, everything becomes easier. And fifth, you reframe your sensitivity. Instead of seeing it as a burden, start seeing it as a superpower that requires careful management, because it is. You can read rooms, you can understand people, you can create, connect, and care in ways that change lives. That's not weakness, that's extraordinary capacity. There's a beautiful quote by Anas Nin, "I am not strange, I'm just not normal." And that's the truth for highly sensitive people. You're not normal, you never will be. And that's not a problem to solve, it's a reality to embrace. Because the world needs people who feel everything. We need the poets, the artists, the healers, the ones who refuse to become numb. We need people who still cry at injustice, who still feel the weight of others' pain, who still believe that caring deeply is worthwhile, even when it hurts. Yes, you'll be misunderstood. Yes, you'll be told you're too sensitive your entire life. Yes, you'll carry weights that others don't even notice. But you'll also experience life in a richness and depth that most people never access. You'll know what it means to truly connect, to feel art in your bones, to love so completely that it transforms you, to understand suffering so deeply that your compassion becomes a force for real change.
So here's my message to you, the person who feels everything, who cries at commercials, who can't shake off other people's emotions, who walks through the world like every nerve is exposed. You are not too much. The world is not too much for you. You're just operating at a different frequency, and that frequency is valid, valuable, and deeply needed. Stop trying to toughen up. Stop trying to feel less. Stop apologizing for the tears, the overwhelm, the need to step away sometimes. Instead, honor what you are. Protect your sensitivity like the rare gift it is. Create a life that accommodates your depth rather than demanding you shrink to fit spaces that were never built for people like you. Find your people, set your boundaries, ground yourself daily, and most importantly, stop believing the lie that feeling deeply is a weakness. Because in a world that's increasingly numb, increasingly disconnected, increasingly unable to respond to suffering with anything but indifference, your ability to feel everything isn't a flaw. It's a form of resistance.
It's a form of hope. It's proof that not everyone has forgotten what it means to be fully, painfully, beautifully human. And that's something worth protecting, worth honoring, worth carrying even when the weight feels impossible. Because you don't feel everything by accident. You feel everything because you're built to experience life at a depth most people never reach. And that depth, as heavy as it is also what makes you capable of extraordinary things. So carry it, but carry it with pride. Carry it with boundaries. Carry it knowing that your sensitivity isn't something to overcome. It's something to live from, to create from, to love from. And in a world desperate for people who still know how to feel, that makes you exactly what we need.